And there was that brief period, this is a bit risky, Carl, brief period where, remember when Samuel Eto'o and Roberto Carlos played for Anzi in Russia?
Yeah.
There was a brief period where Russian football was great. Like, I used to really like Zenit St. Petersburg, and now I feel bad. Because
You weren't to know, Jack. Don't worry.
No, I wasn't.
I don't think there's a correlation. Hello and welcome to When Football Began Again, the podcast that gets the Premier League's baby photos out and remembers how cute he used to be. Today's show is a desert island matches special with a friend and comedian, Jack Campbell. Jack is a lovely, lovely man. He comes and picks his favourite memorable matches. More on that in a moment. Before we do that, though, thank you to everybody who's joining the show after James Green's episode last week, where we looked at alternative football histories based on James's book. I know that one or two people have been in touch and said they bought that as well, so I hope you're enjoying that as well. Lots of fun there. We did also pick the Premier League's greatest ever Chilean player. I will be revealing who your votes selected at the end of today's show. Thank you as ever for your support of the show. Please do leave the show a review if you're enjoying it. That really, really helps me. It takes a couple of minutes, but really, really helps me find new listeners. So thank you very much for doing that. If you've left me a review recently, I really appreciate it. So let's get on with today's show with Jack Campbell. Jack and I go way back. We cover this quite a bit during the show. Jack's brain works in wonderful ways. I don't think I've spoken about this many games of football in 1 hour as I have put together across the entire series. It's incredible. Jack just has this memory where he just plucks memories out from different games that mean something to him. This show could have been 2 hours long, I'm pretty sure. So I don't remember quite how many matches I actually managed to nail Jack down to, where he gave me one match that he takes to his desert island. However, it's still a lot of fun. He's also one of these people who doesn't really have a favourite team. He just loves football, and I think that comes across. So let's get on with it. Without further ado, this is Desert Island Matches with the comedian Jack Campbell. Enjoy. Joining me today is a former English Comedian of the Year and current hilarious and very charming man, Jack Campbell. Jack, how are you, mate?
Hello, Carl.
What I normally do on Deserted Island Matches is start by finding out my guest's favourite team and how they came to get that team. Now, you are one of those rare beasts, you're not the first we've had on the show, who doesn't particularly have a team. So tell me about your earliest footballing memories and maybe how you missed the boat on having a team bestowed upon you.
Growing up, I just wasn't that interested in it, and I don't know what it was. Like, all my mates played. I would play, I think, coordination-wise, I just couldn't quite get it. But I'm saying coordination-wise, I did gymnastics to like an okay level. I went to the same place that Lewis Smith went to, and I think he's a little bit older than me, maybe a little bit younger, probably about the same age. And so I did all these, like, my mum would make me do all these clubs, I think, as like a way of like cheaper childcare. I did pottery with like a bunch of like elderly ladies, and then I did aero modelling with a bunch of elderly men. Like, and this is all like in a village in Cambridgeshire. And all my mates played football. We played football in school. I just didn't have that drive in me to care about it, because also I'm not really competitive. And so, and I tried, and I think the first team that I decided I'm going to support them when I was little was Liverpool. But even then, Liverpool seemed like, you know, like thousands of miles away, you know, and they're never going to play near here or whatever. So I just wasn't interested. And all my mates played on teams, and they all played like rugby as well. And I just didn't. I think even from a very young age, I was quite different. Not better, just difficult. I think I didn't really like playing because I just wasn't good enough. So it was a bit stressful. I wasn't bothered about like the rough and tumble of it. I didn't care about that at all. Quite enjoyed that side of it, but I wasn't the fastest. I didn't have any technique because I didn't play from a young age. But I could just play for hours. Like, and I still have that now. Sometimes some of your previous guests on this podcast, like Alex Hilton, we've played football together as adults, doing a bit five-a-side. And I've been described as, Jack, it's really hard to defend against you because you don't know what you're doing. So how do you defend against someone who has no idea what they're doing? Sometimes I get lucky and have a good game, but In terms of like energy-wise, though, I'll just go and go and go. Even now in my 30s, like me, my dad, and my brother will go watch random football games together. Now, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Do you ever leave for a gig early? I suppose it's difficult for you because you've actually got responsibilities, Carl. But like, I'll leave for a gig early, even if it's in Leicester. I'll leave at around 3 p.m. so I can listen to it on the radio, on Talk Sport, like, or whatever. And it's a perfect like 2 hours of all the scores coming in. I love that. But it took me a really long time to properly watch one whole game. Even if I'd been to games live, I just struggled sitting there. I was a lot more interested in watching everything else other than the football. I found a way to enjoy watching it. I think because I like to talk. And so when you're sat next to someone like, and maybe it's a jealousy thing, and maybe it's a similar thing to comedy, where audiences, especially at weekend clubs, especially blokes, get jealous that they're not allowed to talk as much. And so at football, I'm like, why is no one paying attention to me?
Comedian at football, I love it. We mentioned being a football neutral. Josh Pugh was on the show, who's also football neutral. He said it has its downsides. He says he kind of doesn't feel that elation that his mates feel when they've won something. I mean, would you agree with that? Like, what are the pluses and minuses of not having the team that you're maybe emotionally invested in?
I think with me, because the neutrality of it is quite a recent acceptance, like literally like this year. I finally accepted, I just like it. I can't be bothered to follow one team. And growing up, when we were little, we didn't have a lot of Cambridge or Peterborough fans. We had a few. And I think because of its proximity, where it wasn't too hard to get to London, there were quite a lot of Arsenal and Chelsea fans. And this is before Chelsea had won the league. But there was also loads of Man U and Liverpool fans. Odd pepperings of other teams in there. And I loved that. I was way more interested in. So all my mates supported Liverpool and Man United and would never go see them. That bothered me. I was like, well, why don't you go see them? So then this was around 2002, 2003. Just before I'd started playing Football Manager 2002. Yeovil Town had recently gone on a run of getting promoted into the league, I think. And I liked the name. I thought that was a very silly name. I'd never heard of Yeovil Town before. And so I was like, I'm going to follow them. That's going to be my team. I got a shirt and with like my name on the back. And me, my dad and my brother would go watch Yeovil Town. And this probably went on for a good 8 years. So then it was Yeovil for a while. But before that, it was Liverpool.
So, the first match for your deserted island, it's normally a Premier League game for your chosen favourite team, as we've discussed. You don't really have one. What would be the Premier League game you would watch forevermore?
I've gone for the Leicester. Originally, Carl, I said it over as 5-2. That's quite a good summary of my football. It was 5-3, as we just did a little off-air digging. Leicester I'll have a soft spot for anyway, because I went to university here. I still live here. I went to a Leicester match, Leicester Middlesbrough, and I was with all the Middlesbrough fans in like my first year of uni. And I love that I can hear it from my house when they're playing. I love all that. But that game was a sudden kind of... So like my whole time I was at uni, and I think again, because I wasn't really not fussed enough about football. I liked football, I just wasn't fussed enough. For going to university to have a Premier League team in the university I never really thought about it that much. And so it doesn't really have to be a Premiership team, but it's just something that makes it a little bit more exciting when you've only got 20, well, not even 20 cities, have you? Because London and Birmingham and Manchester, but let's say 15 cities, give or take, depending on the season. And so Leicester always kind of kept an eye on them, and they went all the way down to like League One, and which does happen a lot. And so whenever there's arguments on sports things about teams get relegated, sometimes the ones that go all the way down to League One really sort themselves out. I think maybe that's sometimes what needs to happen. Leeds did it, Southampton did it, Norwich have done it several times. But there was something about that 5-3. I'd gone to London and I'd gone to go see my friend Matt, who, speaking about earlier, Liverpool fan, who now is a Cambridge fan. He was in London. I'd gone to go see him. Always liked to go see him and my other friend Lewis, who supports Millwall, as a joke against the guy who supports West Ham. Just in a pub. There was nothing at stake for the game because it was early enough in the season. I remember, Leicester get promoted and not really being too aware, but it was one of those ones, a bit like, the year after in school or whatever, when you leave somewhere and then the year below get computers. That's what it felt like. So I was like, oh, great. Now they're in the Premier League. Right. Okay. And I think I've moved back to Cambridgeshire for about 4 years. What year did we say it was? As if we decided what
it was 2014, wasn't it? Yeah, 2014.
September 2014. So there was something about it being this affinity for Leicester. Man United had always been this team, always winning, but it never felt, weirdly, it never felt boring with Man United. I think because there was always enough of a gap between win, another team wins. It kept you interested. Man United, it was just this thing, Leicester aren't going to do that or whatever, but like Man United's being this team that is definitely possible to beat and signalling not just Leicester as like they can win, because it signalled, because I remember when they signed, I can never pronounce his name, the Japanese guy, Okazaki, and the one from Brighton, from Argentina.
Ajoya,
yeah. And that seemed really exciting. That like, oh, okay, like, because I think Brighton nearly got promoted that year. So they got him, and I think like Ajoya scored some great goals, and so like Leicester now had him too. I was like, okay, this is good. And I was so probably getting to the point where I was just like, I might end up supporting Leicester because this is just so exciting. And then Cambiasso, who I remember you could get on FIFA Street on PlayStation 2. And there was again something about this guy. I was like, Leicester have got Cambiasso. What is going on? But then that sometimes when it aligns perfectly of getting a 34, 35-year-old who can still do something. And of course, it being Jamie Vardy there of like, who's this guy? And like hearing the stories in the news, they got him from Fleetwood, didn't they? And Leicester still had that, so many of those players who had been with them from like League One, but to beat Man United 5-3, big scoring game, and not it wasn't Leicester were up 5-0 and then Man United scored 3. They were down 3-1.
Down 3-1 and 2-0, yeah. And Vardy, as you say, Vardy really announces himself on the scene, I think, in that game.
And it is one of those games as well where it's just like, nothing to lose, let's just go for it. Early in the season, so, and it seemed a real kickstart. I remember not too long ago, like when Norwich beat Man City quite early in the season, and it's kind of one of those ones where like that can do something for you early on in the season and really carry you on. But there's just something about being in that pub with my mate, signalling that Man United haven't got it anymore. And the fact that they had Van Persie. I love Van Persie. I love his story that like both of his parents are artists.
Right, I did not know that.
You don't know that?
No.
Yeah, both of his parents are like, his dad's like a sculptor, and he grew up in this middle class part of Amsterdam. Went to a really good school, but he was just so misbehaved at school and hated it. And they were like really, really worried about him. And then they were just like, fine, go play football. It's a bit like a reverse Billy Elliot. Yeah, like his dad's like a reporter.
Just with more looping headers.
Yeah, that one. Just.
The second game for your deserted island is a non-Premier League game you take with you to deserted island. Any game that's taken place outside of the English top flight, what would you go for?
Oh, yeah. So it must have been mentioned loads. The Liverpool 2005 final. That was one, I think, for me, the switching on at 15. For some people, that's mad that took that long to switch on the joy of watching football at home. When Ryan was there, Milan up 3-0. And again, I was just like, I have memories of that around the same thing as the Rugby World Cup. Was that 2003 when England won that? I was upstairs. I didn't care enough about it. Whereas my mate Ryan was downstairs going mad for it. But that one and Jersey Dudek doing the swaying around and stuff. And that really was exciting. And it also just showed, I think it also made me learn that Ryan, who had been a Man United fan all his life, had a Man United mural up on his wall, but how your goalposts can change depending on what's at stake. So it was the fact that like it was an English team. Suddenly it doesn't matter whether it's Man United, Liverpool, but he's from Cambridgeshire. There's that. But then I wrote on the things like put some cameos from John Terry crying. John Terry wasn't crying at that game. John Terry full kit, Chelsea kit, shows up to Chelsea to Liverpool AC Milan.
He would have had to change out of an AC Milan kit at half time, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And so the 2009 one, was that it? With John Terry crying. Just I think they should just put that every now and then, do that in there. But and I love the league. I really, really do, especially when it gets dead exciting and all the permutations of it all. But then with the cup, any kind of cup like Champions League, the 2002 manager game I'm playing, it's 2 group stages still.
Right. Yeah, that was a brief window, wasn't it? Yeah.
Horrible. You're out of the group stage, you're into another one. Like, what's the point in that? And so, I love my dad loves the FA Cup, and it's another one of those ones where it took a long time to realise how much he loves it. So we've been to Peterborough, West Brom. He loves a big team against a little team, and this is I think when West Brom were in the Prem. And it went to penalties, and it was just a horrible game all round. And so we went to the last few years, we've made a bit of a job of going to a football match, especially the 3rd round of the FA Cup. That's my dad's favourite. And I really like it too. I love the draw. The draw when it was Noel Gallagher and Serge from Kasabian, and they got Leicester and Man City. I sometimes watch that on YouTube just because it's so sweet and silly. So a few years ago, we went to the Cambridge-Newcastle FA Cup game when Cambridge won 1-0. Have you been to St James's Park in the away end?
I have. It's a long way up.
It's right. Even if you don't like football, I think people should do it, shouldn't they? Should go
like a charity challenge.
Oh my God! It's just to go up there. I would love to go up there when it's empty, just to look out over. You can see over Newcastle, but then you just see into this ground, and it's funny that they make the away fans go up there. And my 60-odd-year-old dad, who's got a fake ankle and a fake knee, so we got up there, get all the way up to the top, and that was really it was just great fun. Me, my dad, and my brother stayed in a hotel next to the ground and had a bit of a night out in Newcastle, seeing a load of people from the tiny village I grew up in there as well, chatting to some of them a bit, but nothing much. But also feeling quite smug that they've all got to then drive 4+ hours back when we're in a hotel that you can see the ground from. And the fact that Cambridge's goal was dead scrappy and just clinging on. I like those kind of games. I've also got in there the QPR Derby County Playoff Final, another awful game that rather than it was scrappy throughout, more one of these ones where both teams didn't want to lose. It was the first time watching a football match at Wembley. And me and my mate Ryan went with his dad, 0-0. QPR didn't deserve to win at all. It was so bad that they got a player sent off, and Bobby Zamora just coming off his shin or something, and that being that. All of that for that. And so those kind of I love those games. But I think it would probably be the Cambridge-Newcastle one.
So, if I gave you a time machine to go back in time and get that replica shirt that could have shaped your football neutrality, what would have been the replica shirt that Jack Campbell would have got as a youngster?
Owen Hargreaves, Bayern Munich top, please.
Okay.
I love Owen Hargreaves. I love him. I love his stupid voice. He's Charlie Hunnam, isn't he? He's just this mismatch. Grew up in Canada. So he's got that North American Canadian twang, but his parents are from Liverpool. And then he never lived in England. He moved over to Germany. And I was so excited when he came to Man U. But I think it's not just was it the 2006 Euros where Owen Hargreaves was just unbelievable. That's more what I base my footballing skills off. Just Owen Hargreaves, 2006, up and down, up and down. Not a clue what he's doing. He doesn't know, but he's there. He's been invited. And I think also because of, of where I grew up, and it happened all over England, of course, a bit of German German bashing, and I found it so boring and weird that it made me like Germany more out of spite almost, and how arrogant. I think that's with the neutrality of it. I think sometimes how arrogant people can become when they're so diehard about one team. That's more my issue, I think, when they lose a sense of obviousness and fairness. Germany, are historically and statistically a better team than England, without a doubt. Like, you're a fool if you think otherwise.
Yeah.
At the moment, England are probably better. Germany have gone through a bit of a dip, even though how recent it was when they won 8-1 against Brazil. Was it 8-1?
Yeah. 7-1, yeah.
And I think from that, though, I loved to celebrate my neutrality and almost football defiance of always just being a little bit like, I'm going to like this instead. The German kit, and I saw it, there's a shop in Manchester, and they've got, I think Burnley are sponsored by this shop, and they've got it was £300. And if I had that kind of money to be like, I would have to have probably 30 grand to be okay with spending £300 on a shirt that I'm probably not going to wear. 30 grand in my bank account, always, right there. And so it's the one where it's kind of white with the flag going across. It's a very iconic shirt. And I remember I had on PlayStation 1 FIFA 96, and it was almost cartoony. John Motson was commentating that if you scored a goal, it played a little cartoony video. But the German kit on there, even on a video game from the 90s, looked so good. And I think it would have to be that one. I just love it. I love that German kit so much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll sort that out for you. The third game to take with you is a Premier League game that you'd relive again and again. That's not your team. You kind of get a bonus extra one here. And I think the one you've gone for is more about an occasion that happened, more about an instant that happened in the game than the game itself. Is that fair?
Yeah. Well, I was close to going for Man U West Brom 5-5 on the last day of the season. But I think because I didn't want to, because it didn't mean anything. It was just fun. And I was watching it in the pub back in Cambridgeshire. We were sat the other side of the pub because the other side of the pub was, me and my mate Ryan would love to sit in the other side. All the scores coming in last day of the season. And 5-5 because both teams clearly don't care. Whatever. Let's concede, let's score. Nothing matters. You're safe. Whatever. But it was I don't even remember. Obviously, Newcastle were playing for the game that I've chosen. I can't remember who they were playing. I can't remember the score. But the fact it was Keiron Dyer and Lee Bowyer having that punch up. I was at my dad's in Cumbria. My brother was there. And he just was suddenly like, oh my God, you got to come downstairs and see what's just happened. And so we're there, and they just showed it over and over again for the following week. Just constantly, like almost every hour on Sky Sports News, they were playing. And they weren't censoring it, really. They were just showing them get punched in the face. Whereas now they absolutely would censor that.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what year. I'm going to go for 2006.
I think you're in the ballpark. I think it may have been 2005 against Aston Villa, and Newcastle were already down to 10 men when two of their players decided to have a scrap and were reduced to 8, which, as a referee, I mean, dealing with that, it's obviously a really rare. I think David Batty and Graham Lasso might have done it in a Champions League game for Blackburn in the 90s as well. But to have two players from the same team fighting each other, I mean, it must be a difficult one for the referee. He just sent them both off.
Yeah. And I really liked Keiron Dyer. I didn't really know much about Lee Bowyer. My brother did, because he was more into football and especially more into Premier League football. But I liked Keiron Dyer. Did Keiron Dyer start at Ipswich?
Yeah.
No. Yes, he did.
No, he did, yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I think how that was another kind of marker of, for me, Newcastle's fall, where early 2000s, late 90s, very, very big team, always really, really close to greatness and never quite getting there, but just always being this massive, massive team. And then this happening, and it just kind of really showed how the wheels were flying off at Newcastle. it's a similar thing, like where when players kiss each other when they score, they don't know they're doing it. There's great like interviews with players where like so I don't even like that person on my team that much, but you end up just going mad and like kissing like someone on the forehead. And I think where the frustrations are there and all the other stuff that must have been going on with the club, because they were relegated not too long after that, were they?
Yeah, I think Alan Shearer just rethought his retirement plans in the week before, and I think that was partly due to the fact that things were going downhill fast. And they were relegated a couple of seasons later.
Yeah, and there was two Newcastle fans I went to school with. One was a couple of years above. I don't know why he supported Newcastle. I don't really know why the other one supported Newcastle. Oh no, my other mate also did, but he had more of a family connection there. But like, and again, like Newcastle's proper far from Cambridgeshire as well. Like again, and so there was just something about it, like this massive team. Aston Villa just got forgotten about. Could you, if you didn't look that up, would you have known it was Aston Villa?
No. They were forgotten in that.
Newcastle were the only team on the pitch, and they just kept on playing it over and over and over again. Like it was so okay. And then you kind of think about it now. It's like, you really shouldn't be showing that. You should, I don't know what kind of aftercare they did with all, I can't remember whether it was like an apology or whatever from them. All I know now is that Lee Bowyer is a hard man. And I didn't know he was. But Keiron Dyer was like a prodigy, wasn't he? Like, he was going to be amazing. And he just like fluffed it. A game that you can only watch a split screen version of that match. One camera is following around Lee Bowyer. One camera is following around Keiron Dyer. Do you have to hand what minute it happened in?
It was that in the last 10 minutes, I think. Last 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, that's even better. It's either first 10 or last 10. Anywhere in between. If that happened in the first 10 minutes, that would be mad. This is clearly some John Terry, Wayne Bridge stuff. Last 10 minutes, you're down 3-0. Whatever. Who cares?
It would be fascinating, as you say, just to watch it through the match and just see what happened, what the incidents are, because clearly this has been bubbling. So okay, all right. Well, Newcastle 0, Aston Villa 3 is your choice. If only to psychoanalyze.
0, football 3.
And what about non-English teams? Have you got any European teams? Is there any European teams that you keep an eye out for the results of?
I've got loads. I've got an annoying amount. Like, I think because sometimes football's not enough. I guess, where the idea. So I've got a mate who supports Arsenal. He's originally from Coventry. He only cares about what Arsenal have done and a tiny bit about what Coventry had done. But otherwise, it's only Arsenal. It's like, I don't care about any other team whatsoever. So I couldn't live it. There's so much information, and it is such a global game, and it ties in with geography as well. It's really interesting to find out where these teams are and stuff. I'm currently wearing my Inter Miami tracksuit bottoms, but I got before Messi.
Okay.
I got these during lockdown, when David Beckham, who I adore, and a lot of the American teams. So I quite like getting stranger kits, and especially tracksuit bottoms and shorts. I quite like having a slightly different one. But then I had these on not long ago, and my brother was like, "Oh, have you got them because Messi signed?" I'm like, "No, like I'm not a child." Like, I also love when I see adults with replica kits on, and names of players on the back. I don't know whether I put it in the thing. I once saw a man. This was good. Like, you'll be able to place it time-wise. I once saw a man with a Man United top on with Richardson on the back.
Right. Wow.
As in Keiron Richardson. It's like, your last name better be Richardson. Who's getting a replica top? But then at the same time, I love it. If you are, great. So with all European teams, I really, really like it. So again, because it's just being played everywhere. I never like the biggest team in a country. So not bothered about Real Madrid. And Real Madrid were, for me, when David Beckham went there, when Michael Owen went there. And it just didn't seem right. It seemed like what is happening now of hoovering up players. However, when Gareth Bale went there, I was like, great, that's a good move. It felt a bit different. I think you'll probably feel a bit more odd about that. But and same with Italy was always kind of an odd one. I wasn't ever fussed. I found Italy quite a difficult division to enjoy. But like some of it is, and so I've got different teams now over the years that I keep an eye on in Italy. I'll always look, but when Juventus won it, did they win it 10 years in a row?
Yeah, I think so.
Just boring.
Mm.
So boring. There's something about it that clearly like it develops a lot of great players and managers there, and the passion of it I really, really enjoy.
And I believe your football manager career may have given you a particular soft spot for a certain German team.
Totally. Yeah. So that was more over lockdown playing a lot of Football Manager on my phone. I worked at a COVID testing centre over lockdown. Couldn't do any gigs, so I was working there. And there wasn't a lot to do. So I'd sit and play Football Manager on my phone. And I had a career where I was just awful at the new ones. I'm so bad at the new ones. On a laptop, there's too much. So on the phone, the Football Manager mobile versions are generally easier and a lot more fun. So you don't end up throwing your phone across the room, I think. Like. And so I ended up got sacked on it. And on those games, you can only get employed by an available club. Whereas on the 2002 one, you can apply for any club. Doesn't matter. Right? And so MSV Duisburg, I came across. They were in 3 Liga, and I got them from 3 Liga to the Bundesliga top, won it first season, and did a 3-peat. And it was around the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary. So 3-peats were in my head for everything. Like, you've got to do it 3 times, man. That's what you got to do. And MSV Duisburg, I love, and I want to go watch them. I want to get the shirt. The kit, the badge is one of the best badges. It's got a zebra on it. A blue and white zebra. They wear blue and white stripy shirts. Maybe I do also like blue and white stripy shirts because there's been QPR and there's a lot of other ones in there. But
a blue and white zebra, that's, I mean, Attenborough's not discovered that yet, has he? I mean, I suppose it's a zebra in pyjamas.
Zebras in Germany. They're not a native animal to Germany at all. Let's just do that. Whatever. With Duisburg, we've got a 30,000 seater stadium that we cannot fill for the life of us. They got to like the DB Polka Cup final in like maybe 2015, just got thrashed. So they just hang around in the bottom tier of German football, but they can't do anything. Like, and so I like that. And I've got a friend who, it wasn't really a stag do, but before he got married, him and his wife to be both went on kind of solo stag and hen parties.
Okay.
So just to do a little trip on your own for yourself, which I think is really cool. He went, I think, around Europe, taking the coach to see as many football games as he could in a week.
Right.
And he's gone to Frankfurt. And if you do it around the Balkans, sometimes he was watching 2 games a day. Like, get a coach finish and then go get another one and whatever. And again, I think because it is being played, especially all over Europe, all at the same time, on the same day, more or less. Recently, so my dad works for a service. And they primarily do like motocross clothing and protective stuff. And now they also sponsor a few football teams. And really odd ones. And it's perfect. Like Aberystwyth, they sponsor them. Right. St Neots in Cambridgeshire. Barrow, I think in Cumbria, they had a year for, and like the whole shirt sponsor thing. I'm sure as well you'll remember when your team was sponsored by a company, that was for 5 years. It wasn't every year that they got a new one in, and it's the money of it's all mad. I remember the newspaper article when Vodafone stopped sponsoring Man United and how much of like an effect that was. And so a service is Italian, and they were sponsoring Spezia. And my dad kept on sending in our WhatsApp group to me and my brother Spezia results, and it's just ended up being we just like Spezia now. We want to go to Spezia, and it was Spezia and Cremonese were both sponsored by a service, who I think have both since are now not sponsored by a but we wanted to go to Italy and watch Spezia Cremonese in Serie A, the service derby we were going to call it, and they sponsor a bunch of other teams. So I've got a Valence, so French Valence.
Yeah.
Guess which animal? It's another one. What animal it's a bird.
Oh, right. Okay. Because I was going to go, because I was thinking it was near like Catalonia. I was going to go for like a bull or something. It's a bird. Flamingo.
It's a swan.
Of course.
Just a swan. And I've got the top, and the top's so cool where it's got the stadium at the bottom of the shirt.
Right.
Like kind of faded in on the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a nice, yeah.
I think Euros, especially Euros and the World Cup, but Euros really got me into a load of other teams because you research all those players and then you'll get some like wonder kid who plays for like Ostrava in Czech Republic, and then you learn all about that and whatever. And so there's loads, like just loads, and I tend to have a team from each country, but one's like some of it is Football Manager based. I've got a real when you've gone up to Edinburgh, do you have a Scottish team?
I have always liked Hearts, and actually Spurs drew Hearts in the UEFA Cup about 2012, 2013, something like that. So I actually went to Tynecastle, sat in the Spurs end and watched Spurs at Hearts. It's amazing. It's
a wooden ship of a ground, like an old pirate ship of a ground. I prefer Hearts over Hibs. Like I think they both come from poems, but Hearts definitely does. I know that it comes from a poem. And when we did a school trip to New York, when this was 2008, when most schools had money before a certain government came in, my school doesn't even have a sixth form anymore. So like, we went there, and the drama teacher who comes up to Edinburgh every time I do Edinburgh, he lives there now, but he used to come up and see former students and stuff. So he told us about Hearts. I can't remember the poet. It came from that. And then there was one year I was living in Edinburgh out in Corstorphine, and the lady there was a big Hearts fan and had like a mural up on her wall. And so I go for Hearts. But then because I don't want to support Celtic or Rangers, I find like, and I find Rangers, you know, the downfall and then the rise coming back up, and I like all of that. But me, my dad, and my brother again in Cumbria, it's not too far from Scotland. We went to see Gretna play and had a Gretna top. Gretna have since come into existence and then disappeared again. So we went to go see Gretna against St Johnstone. It was one of the worst games of football ever. In terms of football, entertainment-wise, I loved it. If you've ever been to Gretna where they do like the marriages and stuff.
Yeah.
So every house, you know how in Blackpool every house is a B&B?
Yeah.
Every house in Gretna is a sweet shop. Like, everyone is just selling sweets, little coffee shop in their house. And we went there. There was a guy who just sung throughout the whole game, but Gretna, the owner, died without sorting out any of the finances, and that's why Gretna just suddenly like just plummeted. But I think like we went around, and I don't know. I would love to go to Barcelona, would watch a game in a big stadium, but there's something about finding the smaller clubs and you know, like these old stadiums and stuff like that that I do just love a lot. I really like Copenhagen because they never amount to anything at all, you know. And there was that brief period. This is a bit risky, Carl. Brief period where, remember when Samuel Eto'o and Roberto Carlos played for Anzi in Russia? There was a brief period where Russian football was great. Like I used to really like Zenit St. Petersburg, and now I feel bad because like
you weren't to know, Jack. Don't worry.
No, I wasn't.
I don't think there's a correlation. Well, I went to Bruges. We went to Bruges for the day last year, coming back from France, and we went to look at Club Bruges, and that was it. Me and my son for the entire season, and they actually did quite well in the Champions League. They reached the knockout stage of the Champions League, and then ended up with Scott Parker as manager. It was very bizarre set of circumstances.
So odd that he did that. Like, and I love it that he did it. But it was also like, Scott, what are you doing, man? Like when Steve Twent and you know, like and Joe Cole and Joe Barton went over to France, and that can sometimes sway what I like. Like French team wise, so there's Valence, and also I really like Strasbourg.
Yeah,
but because of Arsene Wenger,
right?
Because that's where he grew up, and it's like in that Germanic bit, and he grew up above a pub, and it's just something about Strasbourg that they never do well. Palermo, I really like in Italy because they have those pink kits, but yeah, like if it's like. I liked Roma for quite a while because they were just outside of the other lot, you know, but the Milans I wasn't really bothered about. I find it odd that they share a ground, you know, it seems lazy that they share a ground. There's a fantastic video of Lazio when they're chanting at Lazio and just the sound of it, like that wall of sound. I really, really like that. And I would like, you know, to go anywhere and I'll go watch a football game, and it's like, and I can do that now. I think, like emotionally, I can do it now. To go and watch any game anywhere. There's just there's too many
now. So the fourth match for you to take with you to Deserted Island is a European match you would relive again and again. What would you go for?
2005 Liverpool again is, I think it's almost a given. You might have to phrase the question as you can't have. It's like Harry Potter on Mastermind. You can't. You're not allowed to do it anymore, like because there's not enough questions. But it was. I think it was so important, and again, Gerrard for me really becoming this like figure, as well as the FA Cup. But I don't. Yeah, because it's just been done. But I remember, and I think also every time Liverpool are in Europe, it does something. But at the same time, I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast. But even when Spurs are in Europe, I really like. There's something about them being in Europe because it's not necessarily a given.
Definitely not this season.
No, but I remember. Oh God, I was like 14 when Spurs were near relegation, 2003, 2004, something like that. And yeah, we also had quite a few Spurs fans also growing up as well. But then I think Champions League for me, from the FA Cup, from the 2005, that final got me more into the Champions League. And then they were in it again 2 years later, Liverpool, AC Milan. We seem to have forgotten about that. And then if you look, there was a period of about like 8 years where it was English teams in the final, at least. And then Man United got there against Chelsea, and then Man United got there again against Barcelona. And so, like, I think for me, it was pivotal, that 2005 Liverpool AC Milan final. And I guess every final since we've been chasing that because, you know, being 3-0 down, going 3-0, winning on pens, incredible. When people don't like the Europa League and when it changed the Europa League, oh, who even cares? And now there's a Europa League Conference League. Conference League, love it. It's such a good way to learn about the world and like find these mad little countries and like and teams and stuff like that. And it's just great fun. And I love being in a city when that's going on. Last year in Edinburgh on the grass market, Zurich were playing Hearts, I think, in the crazy qualifying rounds as well, which I find so funny that like don't even call it a qualifying round. Call that the start. And then that's round one. And then by the time it's into the quarterfinals, it's round, I don't know, like 25 or whatever. I think that's so funny. Where did you finish this year? Oh, we got to like round 18. Oh, good going. Like, you know, and so there was a couple that I do remember from a few years ago. So the Liverpool-Barcelona one where Liverpool came back from 3-0 down, was it?
Yeah.
It was only a few years ago. That was really great. But I think you performed it. I've stopped running it since. Comedy and Cocktails. The venue's even shut only the other day, Carl. That's all gone now. But I remember hosting that. It's quite fun being at a comedy night where you're checking the score in between intervals and in between breaks and stuff. And so that was really good fun. And then was that Tottenham Ajax going on at the same time?
So Tottenham Ajax was the night after Liverpool Barcelona.
Yeah, that was it. Perfect. But also the Tottenham Man City one I loved as well because it was so another like well done for Man City for winning it finally, and I'm glad they did. But there was a little part of me of like, what if they never win it? What if they never win the Champions League? They keep on getting so close and keep on fluffing it.
The fifth and final match for your Deserted Island is an international game you would take with you. What would you go for and why?
Right. I had believed for far too long that England won the World Cup 5-1.
Right.
What did they actually win it? 2-1? 3-2?
4-2 after extra time in 1966.
Right.
Against West Germany, if it matters.
West Germany. Yeah, no, I knew that. And that added to the German hating that I had growing up. I'm talking as if I'm German. I'm not German, but I just loved it. But on my 10th or 11th birthday, when did England beat Germany 5-1? It was September 1st. It was definitely my birthday.
It was 2001. It was the week before 9/11, believe it or not.
Why would you bring that up?
Well, just because September 1st. I'm only together. Again.
Before 9/11.
Again, no correlation.
Interesting, isn't it? I had no idea. That feels... God, I was having a party at my village hall for my birthday. And the DJ was a friend's older brother. And, you know, like classic DJ set up, big... The light boxes where it's just 4 colours and it changes on them, and there's a smoke machine that's probably asbestos or whatever, and he kept on interrupting with the score of the game. But was it just a qualifier?
It was a qualifier,
But it was
for World
vital.
Cup. Yeah, it was qualified for World Cup 2002 because earlier in that we had lost to Germany at Wembley. That was the day Keegan had jacked it in. So because this was the thing that I think is forgotten about this campaign is we still needed the Beckham free kick against Greece. That's still this campaign. So even though we thrashed and demolished Germany in this game, we still very nearly missed out on that World Cup.
Yeah, and that was a period of, because then the Euros, not the 2004 Euros, but the 2006, 2008 we missed, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I suppose it was getting a bit, qualification suddenly became exciting again.
Yeah. It's
Whereas
certainly
now it's gone back to boring. They should make it harder to make it a bit more exciting. But yeah, that one, my friend Joe was running around my party with an England flag, and it was all I was enjoying people being excited. I didn't understand particularly why they were so excited about it. But then I just convinced myself that England won the World Cup 5-1, or England only win 5-1 for whatever reason. So that one is quite important to me. But I think in terms of a lot of the answers I'm giving are how I felt before I was into football, and then once I was into football and what it meant. So there was not the most recent World Cup final, the 2018 World Cup quarterfinal, where France beat Argentina 4-3. It was really, I felt excited. Like these two, great, this is a quarterfinal, two big teams playing here who score. I think they've both been scoring a lot of goals. France went on to win that World Cup, but I think I was really caught into that World Cup anyway. I've always, Euros and World Cups, I will try and watch and listen to as many games as I can. There's just something about it. I find it quite sweet when people only watch England games. I find it quite that's nice, but I like watching it all because some of the games are just mad. It's horrible watching a random World Cup game and it's 0-0. You're like, oh God, but Japan beating Germany, and I wish I was more into the 2002 World Cup with South Korea and Turkey getting to that far into it. But we were watching it with a few mates, and some of my other mates weren't really into football either. And so I felt more like, well, I know what I'm talking about here. But we all still managed to channel, we're going to watch this game in this pub. There's a lot of people properly watching it, like they cared about it. It's France against Argentina. It's just a quality game, I think. That's more the thing. It's going to be a great game. But my mates who were watching it, we were like, well, how can we make this more fun? So we were talking about which countries have the fittest goalie loudly in this quite rough pub. And because we were just focused on the game, sort of talking to each other, looking at the game, not looking at each other's faces, just talking. Jan Sommer's really fit, isn't he? Jan Sommer's a tasty piece to work. He's great for Switzerland. And a lot of goalies are all big, and you don't really get many ugly goalies. I think because they've got more time to look after themselves.
I mean, I'm of a Steve Grizovic vintage, but I'll take the point and go with it.
Yeah, as a goalie,
he wasn't the best looking. I mean, if you're watching Steve, I do apologise.
Yeah, but Jan Sommer's beautiful. So we were talking about a bit of manscaping, a bit of grooming, but watching this game, and goals are flying in, quality goals as well, real. I love a right or left-sided run in and just smash. As much as I like the Vincent Kompany one where it was direct, straight on, Gerrard, the FA Cup one, like that. I love that, pass back, smack. But I love a run in, cut in. I don't even know the words. That's how, left or right, just cutting in and it coming in from an angle. Love those kind of goals. And I think there was at least 3 in that 4-3 game.
The Pavard one is the one that rings a bell, because Pavard's story was quite interesting. I think he kind of got discovered by the national team a little bit later in his career and just became.
I love players like that. Yeah,
real top player.
I love someone that gets discovered later.
Okay, nice.
Well, by the time the game had finished, because we've been talking about who's the fittest goalkeeper and Googling them and showing them to each other of what do you think of him? Like that. It's well, I think David Seaman's probably more attractive now than he was with and just going through all these keepers and stuff like that. And all the old men in the pub had left. You're ruining it. Against Argentina, two very also they're beautiful boys on those teams. They are good-looking lads on both of those teams. All like manscaping, groomed, like tattoos. Henry was not playing. Surely he'd retired by 2018.
Yeah.
But Henry also, for me, is like the pinnacle of like, what a beautiful football player. Like how he moves and everything he does. And I think all of the France squad should, I think they try and channel that as much as they can. Even when they play. He didn't play ugly. Like that 4-3 post, I don't know where it's like BC and AD, isn't it? Into football, France winning 4-3 2018 World Cup. Pre-England 5-1 Germany.
Yeah, when Sir Michael Owen scored a hat-trick and
9/11, did you know?
Yeah, week before 9/11, famously.
That 2018 France-Argentina one was 17 years after 9/11. Spooky.
We're going down a Matt Letitia dark web route. So I'm going to give you the chance of redemption. I'm going to offer you a current or former Premier League player who can come and rescue you from the deserted island. Who would you go for and why?
Oh, God. Before we started talking, I think I said I knew who I'd want, and it's just gone out of my head. Oh man, someone who would be Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona, he counts, doesn't he?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Eric Cantona, because I think he got the beach football there. Mm-hmm. Loved a bit of that. He was like France's beach football coach.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Very good at it.
And I think we've got similar demeanours.
Who can forget when Jack Campbell launched into the crowd with a kung fu kick at Comedy and Cocktails?
Yeah, I've got a side to me that I don't want to be. That I've grown up since. When I was 18, I punched a window at a party. So and I got banned from house parties for 18
9 months. When Campbell punches the window, it's because.
Yeah, and it's that as well. He's a philosopher. We can sit on the beach and talk about philosophy. I think he'd be able to see, and I'd want Eric Cantona as he is now. I wouldn't want Eric Cantona then. I'd want Eric Cantona now. Peaceful, very at peace with it all. We're trapped on a desert island. We've survived the shipwreck, and he'd just be like, "It is what it is. We're here." I think he would also be like, "You could probably eat me." I think he'd do that. He'd be so at peace with everything, and I'd be at peace with him. I would happily. It's not about surviving. It's about if we would. I think we'd both peacefully die on that island. Me and Cantona holding hands in the sand.
I mean, of all the approaches I've had to this question, peacefully dying in the arms of Eric Cantona is a new one, but they are all valid, and that's the beauty of this.
And we can practice kicking each other, sure, like just doing run-ups, and just booting each other in the chest. We'd make up philosophies, and I think just as we're about to die, that's when a seagull shows up.
The final irony of Eric Cantona's life.
It'd have to be Cantona, or Thomas Rosicky playing an acoustic guitar, but it would have to be Cantona. I wouldn't want to hang out with, some of the answers on there are great. I'm not in there for being. I'm on a desert island. There's going to be hard days. I think I want someone who's gone through hard times.
Yeah. Finally, I'm going to give you a football to take with you to your deserted island and give you one Premier League goal that you can recreate for the rest of time. Now, there was one goal, if for anyone who's watching on YouTube, that I've put on the background, which isn't a Premier League goal that I think we ought to relive as well. I know this is one of your favourites. David Nugent's singular goal, one cap, one goal for England. Yeah. So talk me through that one and then give me your Premier League goal that you would recreate on the island.
Right, I'm such a dope again with recognising footballers. I didn't know that was David. I didn't know what that was.
Right, okay.
I was like, he's just put up a kooky little football background. Like when you get a birthday card with footballs on it. Like, Carl likes football. He's put up a football background. That goal, I think, represents more honestly what people would do in that situation. Yeah. Like in most situations in life, you've been given this opportunity, you got to go for it, right? I think David Nugent knew I'm probably not going to play again. Like,
and he said that. He said that people still approach him in the street and give him stick for it, and his answer is, "Have you ever scored for England?" Which, of course, David Nugent has. One cap, one goal.
Yeah.
So in all fairness, and for anyone who doesn't know the goal we're talking about, by the way, which is possible, I guess, there is Jermaine Defoe basically beats the goalkeeper. I think it's against Andorra. England are running up a score. David Nugent's come on, and the ball is rolling over the line. And literally, I mean, I'm not even from half a yard. The ball is practically on the line when David Nugent just comes in and wellies it to make sure it gets over. There's actually on the picture behind, the defender's clearly checking for offside. I mean, that probably would have been remembered less favourably had he cost England the goal.
There's also a huge empty stand,
Yeah.
And so and that's also the thing with like England and all the games they play that are so pointless. Like, it aligned perfectly for David Nugent of, right, I've got my call up, probably not going to get another one. Was he playing in the Championship at the time?
I think he may well have been.
Yeah, Preston.
Rings a bell.
And so, like, I recently started a Football Manager one with Buxton, and I signed David Nugent for free. Buxton. It just aligned perfectly where it's like it wasn't, and of course they were going to use him against Andorra or San Marino or something like that. Like, not going to give him a proper one. It's David Nugent. What are we doing? Like, there must have been a load of injuries, and so for all of that to align, it's like it is a absolute representation of, like, you take your opportunity, because otherwise, he's going to fall into the category of being a one-cap England player. Fine, fun pub quiz answer. David Nugent's like, I want to be one cap, one goal. Like, that's what I'm after. That's what I'm here for. Everyone on this pitch is better than me. Like, I'm good. I'm not saying he's not good, and I don't know. I would have loved to have known whether he found it funny, whether Jermaine Defoe found it funny, like, and whether the whole team, that was really funny. That's why I love that. I didn't watch the game. I have no recollection really of it. I just know it happened. As I think a lot of, like, when you kind of go past a certain level of being a football fan, it's a wonderful reference. And for it to be recreated, I think it does definitely represent something of, like, there's a match going on, doesn't really matter. And, there's going to be a goal. Wait a second. Someone else has pinched it. Who's pinched it? The person who most deserved to pinch it. That was Jermaine Defoe wouldn't have pinched it. No one else would have thought to. Everyone else would have let Jermaine Defoe do what he had to do. David Nugent was like, now. And it all just lined up perfectly for him. And I'm glad it counted. It would have been horrible if it didn't.
So that's your international goal in the bag.
Yeah.
Which Premier League goal would you recreate forevermore?
So the beach ball one for Darren Bent. And I've got a big soft spot for Darren Bent. He went to school in the next town along. He lived in Cambridgeshire for a bit. And the beach ball again. It's just ridiculous that it was even allowed to happen. But those moments, like the Lampard 2010 World Cup goal, become, we've got to change something. We can't allow this to happen again. And listening to TalkSport, I haven't listened to it in ages now because I've got into cricket. But so it's just 5 Live extra all the time. But I love Darren Bent on TalkSport. At first, you listen to footballers sometimes, like, they're a bit thick. He is so himself. He doesn't take himself seriously, but he is a professional. When he's on it on his own without Andy Goldstein, who is so annoying, like, Max Rushton sums it up perfectly. It's like, you could listen to the Drive Time show where they'll be talking about who's a better team, Man United or Arsenal. And that's all Drive Time football, breakfast show football, Drive Time football is. Who's your favourite? You have to pick one. Whereas Darren Bent doesn't really, but that beach ball goal, again, like, it shouldn't have counted. And it's so strange that it was allowed and that no one thought we should get rid of that beach ball.
Yeah.
Like, and there's just something about it. It's just all that money in football and that happens.
Yeah.
Like,
entire seasons can swing on it. Well, so that's you playing the part of Darren Bent. Obviously, you're going to have Eric Cantona there playing a wrong-footed Pepe Reina. And
Cantona kicking it. There was the company goal, the screamer against Leicester, that I think meant Man City won.
pretty much meant it kept the
Yeah.
title in their hands. Yeah.
And especially being like Kompany's last season. I love Vincent Kompany as well. He's so elegant. He is elegant, eloquent, really, really clever. What footballers almost should be, and was like a lion on the pitch as well. He's so good. Side note: didn't Mikel Silvestre have a very odd head?
Yeah.
Like, he had elastic bands around it. Like,
Yeah.
Well done. I know it's been mentioned before in it, but like I get chills thinking about Rooney's overhead goal.
Yeah.
It wasn't even perfect. It didn't come off his foot, did it? It came off his shin.
Well, I've had this conversation with a previous guest who kind of said, "Well, you know, it went where he intended it to go, so does it matter?" And
Yeah.
I think that's that's fair.
And it's the whole thing of it is, and then they did like they put an effect on it for an advert on Sky where it was almost like not cartoon drawn, but like pencil drawn.
Yeah.
And
yeah, like a flip book. Yeah.
Yeah, and it like the Snowman almost. And I feel the same way about watching the Snowman as I do about Wayne Rooney's overhead goal and the celebration, like arms out, like, you know. And I think with that versus, say, David Nugent, as much as it's about things aligning and being perfect, with Rooney, there's so much more like, yeah, this is going to work. This is going to happen. I have to do this. And it's not out of, I think with Rooney, it's like, this is the only way I can visualize this goal going in.
Yeah.
Like, whereas David Nugent could have like ran on the floor and tapped it in with his head.
That would have been the only thing that would have made Nugent's goal better. And
I think it's time, Carl, that I gave an answer that everyone else gave. Rooney's overhead goal, slow motion, including the celebration, you know, eyes closed because it was luck, but it wasn't with that. Yeah. Nugent's goal was just naughty. It was
in all the wrong ways.
Nugent might as well have come out of the ground, like, and popped up last minute, you know, tapped it in, but yeah.
Well, Jack Campbell, it's been an absolute pleasure having your Desert Island matches. What are you up to? Is there anything? Where can we find you online? Kind of where can people follow you, find out where you're gigging and all of that sort of stuff?
I've got footage online. I'm not a big one for putting a lot of footage. AMC a lot. I'm doing a lot of work at Just the Tonic in Leicester, but I suppose it depends when this goes out. I gig a lot. I'm not touring, so follow me on Instagram, Jack Campbell Comedy. I've just started with TikTok. I put up some thirst traps because why not? Mainly me in the gym doing pull-ups because you can never grow up. You can never grow too old to do pull-ups. But I've also just started putting up footage of me playing FA Premier League Manager 2002, and it's shoddy. I haven't got your fancy setup. One day I might do for it, but I'm literally recording using my phone from the screen, like, you know. So I'm starting to put that up on TikTok. I've got 3 seasons with Exit where it is the thing of Football Manager when you really get into it of how daft a game can be on there. So I'm online. I don't really put much stuff up on there. You know, it's got some clips and whatever, and maybe we'll gig again together soon, Carl. We haven't gigged together for a long time.
It's been a while. I very much hope so. And the Exeter TikTok stuff sounds very much like the demographic for this podcast. So go and find Jack on there. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we share a stage together very soon.
Cheers, Carl.
So that was Jack. I think you'll probably see what I mean about just how many games of football we covered in an hour. Not quite sure which ones he's taken to the desert island in all cases, but it doesn't really matter. What a lovely guy, a very charming chat. And Jack, I think, consumes football in a similar way to me in the fact that he enjoys the geography of it, the history of it, the culture of it, kind of what it means to individuals. And I very much relate to that as well. I think we've got a commonality there. So hopefully you enjoyed that and maybe learned about 1 or 2 football teams that you didn't know an awful lot about. I know I certainly did. Last week, we put a player in the Premier League of Nations Hall of Fame from Chile. James Green was my guest. He picked Gary Medel. You didn't agree on the vote. Gary Medel got just 6% of the votes. In second place with 27% of the votes was Alexis Sanchez, but way out front with 67% of the votes, it was Jean Beausejour. So Jean Beausejour, a perhaps underwhelming Premier League career, but actually quite a stalwart of the Premier League for quite a few years, one of those kind of unsung heroes. And that is who your vote was. And I can't argue with that. And let's face it, probably slightly more likeable than Alexis Sanchez. Jean Beausejour goes into the Premier League of Nations Hall of Fame for Chile, edging out also Clarence Acuna. Sorry to the person who got in touch with me on Twitter this week asking where he was in the shortlist. So that is everything for today's show. Next week's show is a return to the all-time Premier League table. We're up to 43rd, I think, and it is Reading FC. I've got a couple of great guests talking about the recent history of Reading. Obviously, they're that record-breaking team in the Championship. They've had a couple of spells in the Premier League. One really, really impressive season out of those as well. A club that's had a slightly more difficult few years of late. We cover a lot of that as well in great detail. Join me next week for Reading's Premier League history. All the links you need for social media are in the show description. I'd love it if you go and find us on there. You can also support the show by buying me a coffee/beer on buymeacoffee.com. The link for that is in the description as well. But in the meantime, as ever, please keep sharing the show with like-minded fans. Leave me a review, subscribe, do all of that stuff that helps the algorithms. That is the bane of my absolute existence. All I want to do is talk about football with like-minded people. So if you're one of those, please keep on sharing it and help me find more listeners and viewers. But that's it for today's show. A huge thanks to my guest, Jack Campbell. I'll be back next week with Reading FC's time in the Premier League. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.